What happens when a man worth $100 million mocks a woman who once defended children for free? What happens when the pastor of America's largest megachurch questions the credentials of a former public defender on live television? And what happens when that woman reaches into her briefcase and pulls out a folder containing 7 years of his most closely guarded secrets? In exactly 45 seconds, one of the most famous religious leaders in America went from smiling confidently to completely silent. One folder, one woman, one moment that no amount of money could undo. Joel Osteen thought he knew who he was dealing with. He saw a congresswoman from Texas. He saw a politician. He saw an easy target. What he didn't see was the daughter of a preacher who learned that faith means service. He didn't see the public defender who spent years fighting for people who couldn't pay her a single dollar. He didn't see the woman who had been preparing for this exact confrontation for 3 weeks. The setting was Houston, Texas. A nationally televised forum on faith and leadership. 2,000 people packed into the audience. Cameras broadcasting live to millions across the country. Joel Osteen arrived like he always does, confident, polished, wearing his trademark smile. Jasmine Crockett arrived quietly, carrying a leather briefcase that would soon become the most important object in the room. For the first hour, everything was civil, pleasant even. But then Joel Osteen made a fateful choice. He decided to mock her. He questioned her record. He suggested that a government lawyer couldn't possibly understand success, faith, or achievement. He expected her to stumble. He expected her to get defensive. He expected the audience to laugh right along with him. Instead, she opened that briefcase slowly. She pulled out a thick manila folder, and the entire room went completely silent. What was inside that folder would expose everything Joel Osteen had spent decades desperately trying to hide. But to understand why this moment was so devastating, you first need to know exactly who these two people really are. Jasmine Crockett was born in St. Louis, Missouri, to a father who preached the gospel and a mother who worked for the Postal Service. Her father, Reverend Joseph Crockett, taught her something that would shape her entire life. He taught her that real faith isn't measured by wealth. It's measured by sacrifice. It's measured by service. It's measured by what you give to people who can never repay you. She carried that lesson through Rhodes College, through the University of Houston Law Center, and into her first job as a public defender in Bowie County, Texas. While other lawyers chased high-paying corporate clients, Jasmine Crockett defended juveniles. Children. Kids who had made mistakes and had no one to fight for them. She kept them out of prison. She gave them second chances. She did it because her father taught her that's what faith looks like in action. She became the youngest black lawmaker in Texas history. She filed more bills than any other freshman in the state legislature. She was elected to Congress with the endorsement of the legendary Eddie Bernice Johnson. She serves on the House Judiciary Committee and the Oversight Committee, the committee that investigates financial misconduct. Now let's talk about Joel Osteen. Born in Houston in 1963, Joel Osteen became the pastor of Lakewood Church after his father's death in 1999. Under his leadership, the church grew from 5,000 weekly attendees to over 45,000. He bought a former basketball arena and transformed it into a 16,000-seat worship center. His televised sermons reach millions every week. His books have sold tens of millions of copies worldwide. Joel Osteen's net worth is estimated at $100 million. He lives in a 17,000-square-foot mansion in Houston's most exclusive neighborhood, valued at over $10 million. He preaches what's called the prosperity gospel. The message is simple. God wants you to be wealthy. If you have enough faith, if you give enough money, God will bless you with abundance. Critics have called this message dangerous. Theologians have called it a distortion of Scripture. But millions of followers have made Joel Osteen one of the most recognized religious figures in America. Two people. Two completely different definitions of faith. One believed service was the point. One believed success was the proof. And on this night in Houston, these two visions were about to collide in a way neither of them expected. If you're watching this and already feeling the tension, stay with me. What happens next will change how you see everything. The grand ballroom of the Houston Marriott Marquis was filled to capacity. 2,000 seats, every single one taken. Camera crews from major news networks lined the walls. Anticipation hung thick in the air. The event was called Faith in Action, a nationally broadcast dialogue between religious leaders and public servants about the role of faith in American life. Joel Osteen sat at the center of the panel table, exactly where he was most comfortable. To his left sat a moderate Republican senator. To his right sat a Catholic bishop known for his charitable work. And at the far end of the table sat Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. Osteen's loyal supporters filled nearly half the audience. Many wore Lakewood church shirts. They cheered when he walked in. They applauded his opening remarks. They laughed at his jokes. This was his city, his territory, his crowd. The first hour was uneventful. The panelists discussed community service, disaster relief, the importance of faith-based initiatives. Joel Osteen spoke eloquently about hope, about God's favor, about the blessings that come to those who believe. Jasmine Crockett spoke about her father's church, about serving those who cannot serve themselves, about the difference between talking about faith and living it. Then the moderator asked a pointed question. She asked directly about accountability in religious institutions. She asked whether megachurches had a responsibility to be transparent about their finances and their spending. Joel Osteen gave a practiced answer about stewardship and generosity. But before Jasmine Crockett could respond, something shifted. Osteen turned toward her with that famous smile, but this time there was an edge to it. "You know," he said, leaning into his microphone, "I've heard the Congresswoman's type of criticism before. But I have to wonder what a government lawyer really knows about building something meaningful. About inspiring people. About faith." The Lakewood supporters immediately applauded. Emboldened, Osteen continued. "With all due respect, Congresswoman, you've spent your career in courtrooms and government offices. I've spent mine building the largest church in America. Maybe before you criticize people of faith, you should accomplish something comparable." He sat back, arms crossed, looking at her with condescension masked as confidence. The audience murmured. Some laughed. The cameras zoomed in on Jasmine Crockett's face, expecting anger, expecting a stumble, expecting exactly what Joel Osteen expected. But Jasmine Crockett didn't raise her voice. She didn't show anger. She simply looked at him for a long moment with an expression that anyone who has faced her in a courtroom would recognize. It was the look of someone who has just been handed exactly what they were waiting for. She reached down slowly, unclasped her leather briefcase, and pulled out a thick manila folder that would change everything. The smile on Joel Osteen's face flickered for the first time all evening. The room fell completely silent, and Jasmine Crockett slowly opened the folder. "Pastor Osteen," she began, her voice calm and measured, "you asked what a government lawyer knows about building something. Let me show you what I know about." She looked down at the first document. "I know about accountability. I know about transparency. And I know what happens when people in positions of power believe they're above scrutiny." She held up a printed page. August 2017. Hurricane Harvey devastates Houston. Hundreds of thousands of people are displaced. Homeless. Desperate. Churches across the city open their doors. Mosques become shelters. Community centers take in families. She paused. But Lakewood Church, your 16,000-seat facility, your 600,000 square foot arena, stayed closed. Your statement said the building was inaccessible due to severe flooding. But Pastor Osteen, photographs taken that same day showed dry parking lots and clear entrances. You only opened those doors after the national outrage became impossible to ignore. The audience stirred. Joel Osteen shifted uncomfortably. "That's been addressed," he started. "I'm not finished, Pastor." She pulled out another document. March 2014. Your church reports that $600,000 in cash and checks was stolen from a safe. The case went unsolved for 7 years. 7 years, Pastor. She held up a news clipping. November 2021. A plumber doing routine repairs discovers 500 envelopes hidden inside the walls of your church. Inside those envelopes? Cash. Checks. Money orders. The same amount that was reported stolen. Found hidden in bathroom walls. In your church. For 7 years. Gasps rippled through the audience. The money your congregation donated in faith, Pastor. Hidden in walls. She didn't wait for a response. She pulled out another page. 2020. The pandemic. Millions of Americans losing jobs, homes, loved ones. Small businesses desperate for help. Your church, with annual income of $89 million, received $4.4 million in taxpayer-funded relief. Money meant for struggling businesses, taken by a tax-exempt church bringing in nearly $90 million a year. The room was no longer murmuring. People were leaning forward. And let's talk about where that $89 million actually goes. She held up a financial report. According to public records, Less than 1% of Lakewood Church's income goes to charitable causes. Less than 1%, Pastor. You tell your followers to tithe. You tell them to give 10% of their income to your church. But your church gives back less than 1% to those in need. Joel Osteen's face had changed completely. The smile was gone. His hands gripped the edge of the table. And while your congregation gives, Crockett continued, where do you live? A 17,000 square foot mansion. Pool. Guest house. Estimated value, $10.5 million. Your net worth is estimated at $100 million. She set down the financial documents and picked up one final page. October 2007. 60 Minutes. Reformed theologian Michael Horton was asked about your message. His response, and I'm quoting directly, was that your prosperity gospel is, quote, heresy. He said it makes religion about us instead of about God. She closed the folder. You asked what I know about building something, Pastor. I know that my father built a church on service, not on stadium seats. I know that I built a career defending people who couldn't afford to pay me. And I know that real faith has never required a $10 million mansion. The Lakewood supporters sat frozen. The rest of the audience was on the edge of their seats. But Jasmine Crockett wasn't finished. She had one more thing to say, and it would bring the entire room to its feet. If you're still watching, don't go anywhere. Like this video right now, because what comes next is the moment that changed everything. Jasmine Crockett looked directly at Joel Osteen. The entire room held its breath. Pastor Osteen, you questioned my credentials. You asked what a government lawyer could possibly know about accomplishment. So let me tell you exactly what I've accomplished. She didn't read from any paper. She spoke from memory, from experience, from a lifetime of service. I was a public defender, Pastor. Do you know what that means? It means I defended people who had nothing. Children who made mistakes and had no one to stand up for them. I didn't do it for money. I did it because my father, a preacher, taught me that's what faith actually looks like. Her voice grew stronger. I was the youngest black lawmaker in Texas history. I filed more legislation than any other freshman in the state. I helped lead the fight against voter suppression. I was elected to Congress, and now I serve on the committee that investigates exactly the kind of financial questions I just raised. She picked up one final document from the folder. This is my law degree from the University of Houston, the same city where your mansion sits. I earned this degree while working, while studying, while serving people who could never repay me. She set it down and leaned forward. You asked what I've built. I built a career on defending the powerless. You built an empire on telling the powerless that if they just believed hard enough, if they just gave you enough money, God would make them rich like you. The room was absolutely still. The difference between us, Pastor, is simple. When people came to me for help, I actually helped them. When people came to your church during a hurricane, seeking shelter from the storm, you locked the doors. She sat back. That's what I know about building something. The room erupted. It wasn't polite applause. It was a roar. People stood up from their seats. They cheered. They clapped until their hands hurt. Even some of the Lakewood supporters sat motionless, their faces caught between loyalty and realization. Joel Osteen sat frozen in his chair. His mouth opened, but no words came out. His eyes darted frantically around the room looking for support, for rescue, for anything that could undo what had just happened. But there was nothing. No prepared speech could save him. No polished smile could deflect what had been revealed. Every scandal, every hidden dollar, every locked door had been laid bare in front of 2,000 people and millions more watching at home. The moderator tried to regain control, but couldn't be heard over the crowd. Jasmine Crockett simply sat quietly, folder closed, expression calm. She had done what she had spent her career doing. She had prepared. She had presented the facts. And she had let the truth speak for itself. The smiling preacher had finally stopped smiling. And the daughter of a real preacher had reminded everyone what faith was supposed to look like. Within 1 hour, clips of the confrontation had been viewed 20 million times. The hashtag spread across every platform. News networks played the footage continuously. By morning, it was the most talked about moment in America. Joel Osteen released a video response the next day. He looked tired. The trademark smile was strained. He called the confrontation an attack on people of faith. He said his church helps millions. He said the Hurricane Harvey criticism had been addressed years ago. But every comment section told a different story. People quoted statistics Jasmine Crockett had presented. The less than 1% charitable giving. The $4.4 million in relief funds. the $600,000 hidden in walls. Every defense Osteen offered was met with the facts she had documented. Inside Lakewood Church, sources reported tension. Some longtime members publicly announced they were leaving. Journalists began requesting financial documents. Questions that had been ignored for years suddenly demanded answers. Jasmine Crockett remained silent for 2 days. Then she posted a single statement. "I spent my career defending people who couldn't defend themselves. On that stage, I let facts do the talking." The post received millions of interactions. What Joel Osteen intended as a simple dismissal of a government lawyer had become the defining moment of his public life. He had underestimated her preparation. He had underestimated her courage. And most importantly, he had underestimated what happens when someone who has spent their life fighting for the powerless is given a platform and a microphone. The smiling preacher learned something that night. Wealth can build mansions. Fame can fill stadiums. But neither can protect you when someone arrives with documented truth and the courage to speak it. This confrontation became more than a viral moment. It became a reminder that accountability doesn't care about net worth, and that the truth has a way of finding daylight, no matter how deep you try to bury it. If this story is making you think, hit that subscribe button right now. Because the final lesson from this confrontation is something everyone needs to hear. What happened in that ballroom was bigger than two people on a stage. A collision between two visions of faith. Joel Osteen built an empire telling people God rewards belief with wealth. Jasmine Crockett built a career proving service doesn't require reward. One measured success by his mansion. The other by people she helped who could never repay her. When these visions collided, only one held up. It wasn't the one with the $10 million house. The lesson isn't about attacking beliefs. It's about accountability. Jasmine Crockett won because she was prepared. She had facts. She spent her life doing what her father taught faith required. Her father believed faith meant serving others. Joel Osteen taught millions faith meant prospering yourself. In that room, the daughter of a servant showed what accountability looks like. The crowd didn't just applaud. They understood. Real faith isn't measured by what you build for yourself. It's measured by what you freely give to others. That's the lesson. That's the truth. If this story moved you, comment below. Share it. Subscribe for more stories.